how does capital relate to evolving trends in the API space? And simultaneously, there are trials of new drugs, demand that is increasing simultaneously. There is advancements in new cannabinoids. There are emerging trends there. There is lack of availability for some countries, and some of them are trying to sell drugs that are not approved but considered OTC in the emerging world. What's your take if we move this directly to the API space and the emerging trends there? And what's your personal take on the future of the API cannabis space?
You know, in the API space, as we start to look at specific isolation of cannabinoids and other phytocompounds, what we're looking to do is, create a singular product for a specific use case, or we are looking to create a ingredient inventory, if you will, for homogenization and formulation of new products in varying amounts for a specific therapeutic application. We further separate that into the prescription realm, if you will, in terms of the clinical applications. And then, as you just mentioned, the over-the-counter realm of autonomous medicinal purchasing. So this would be your traditional Advil, ibuprofen, Aleve purchasing for a pain that you may have through a grocery store or through a convenience store. So with that, we also then have the nutraceutical space that has really been emerging over the last couple of years, especially with the hemp bill here in the United States and CBD becoming so commercially available. And we now saw CBD being infused into cosmetics. We saw it being infused into topical creams and ointments, as well as tinctures. It was being marketed for everything from sleep to anxiety reduction to pain relief. So the active pharmaceutical ingredient or API industry is burgeoning. We're also seeing now new applications in our extraction labs to include nanotechnologies and nano-emulsion technologies, which is essentially creating more bioavailability and lower quantities in any given cannabis product. And so this is all starting to be engineered towards our anatomy and physiology. When we take something orally or enterally as a route of administration, a gummy, a tincture, it needs to go through our stomach, and then it is going to be absorbed into the small intestine. And then from there, it will be distributed, metabolized, and then excreted through our bodies. We are now starting to see food scientists be employed by edible companies studying pectins. We are now starting to see other PhD engineer chemists coming on to extraction lab teams to really understand polarity of molecules to better homogenize and formulate these products, and then further understand how they are absorbed or taken up within a customer or patient's body. So the API is very big, and we haven't even started touching on the global marketplace yet in how those API ingredients, powders, oils, etc., are starting to be commercialized and thus even, transported out of the hemp space into the cannabis space and vice versa. So I do think that we're going to start to see more mainstream integration, especially since we've already seen it on the nutraceutical side. On the prescription or on the more federally regulated side, as it relates to pharmaceutical drugs and agents, I think we are not there yet, and it's still going to take time, especially in the United States. I do believe that there are values. We see Jazz Pharmaceuticals, we see other companies looking at these chemical components. But make no mistake, that is exactly what they're looking at, the chemical component and compound of what they would use to formulate a greater drug to deliver a overall therapy for ALS or for MS. So I do think that there is going to be attraction. There already is from your traditional big pharma side of things, but I believe that is going to be in the true API sense and not necessarily in wanting to scoop up companies or wanting to scoop up brands, but they're going to more or less wanting to buy ingredients and the right to those ingredients for their own purposes.
That's great knowledge from a US perspective. And I think overall what I hear that the world is moving in a positive direction to solve chronic pain, to solve MS, to solve anxiety and depression, or glaucoma, appetite stimulation. I see all of these new diseases that have been introduced saying, okay, there is a certain cannabinoid and combined with a certain compound or an allopathy drug, it is being clinically trialed.
Absolutely. And just one last comment. Let's look at the data. Let's look at what customers and patients of cannabis products are reporting to business analysts and business intelligence outlets as important. Categorically being able to buy a product based off of its effect is an educational gap that is closed, and it's a purchase decision that customers are making in the decision corridor at the point of sale. They now understand what this product may do for them, even in the canna curious patient. And so when you can predict the outcome or you understand how it might make you feel, then you are more apt to want to buy that product and ease your way into using it according to how it benefits you. And so that's where I also think that from the data, from the reporting of patients and adult use consumers alike, they enjoy being able to bundle and purchase categorically, just in the same psychological way that we form concrete, foundational, functional thoughts of things and rationally put them together in our minds.
So just advancing, I know you mentioned CBN and melatonin reshaping the global cannabis market in ways, and the API space. Can you elaborate on that?
In terms of API, we're very much seeing right now in cannabis with certain products and on the hemp and nutraceutical side, the combination or the fortifying of outside ingredients into a product. So this became very popular, in the 90s and early 2000s, in which, well, if I'm going to go buy orange juice at the supermarket, why shouldn't it have more vitamin D and calcium in it, right? So let's go ahead and put that in there. Before, we were only buying orange juice for the vitamin C content, but now we can fortify it with other active pharmaceutical ingredients to make it more nutritious in a way. And what we're starting to see in cannabis is the same method and approach to some of these products. Gummies now are starting to feature melatonin. Melatonin is not a cannabis, nor is it a hemp-derived compound, but it is a compound that is naturally helping with sleep and falling asleep and the circadian rhythm of your body to know your day and wake cycles. And so we're starting to see more of these types of products come in. We do it in the topical space. We see it in the hair care and shampoo space. So I do think that as more and more manufacturing sites come online that have greater capacities, that are co-packers and that are co-extractors for multiple companies, we are going to start to see innovation. We will start to see research and development initiatives start to prove out, and we will see, hopefully, some efficiencies created, some knowledge transfer, and from there, new products that are going to have varying forms of multiple phytocompounds, as well as potentially other compounds that we're already familiar with in the aromatherapy or nutraceutical space. Perhaps St. John's wort, perhaps lavender, these types of things. And we've already seen vape companies start to use lavenders and chamomiles in their formulations in order to elicit certain responses out of customers, which is how they are marketing that product to them in the first place. So I think that there's going to be a very big confluence in the commercialization of APIs as it relates to the products, especially if a company understands the customer base they're going to target and message that product to and the value proposition that they are going to propose.
I'm looking forward to the permutations that you're describing. This sounds so interesting. As you mentioned, melatonin and CBN. And I'm thinking there is a lot more in the herbs industry and the flowers industry and the tea industry where there could be confluences that work together with cannabinoids and give a positive effect.
It very much goes back to the financial questions that we were just talking and discussing and answering, in that you can have a wide variety of API ingredients available to you. That doesn't necessarily mean you should engage and use them. That doesn't necessarily mean that you need to formulate a product with them. It goes back to your intention. So what is your intention behind having these isolates? What factor forms are you going to put them in, from a foodstuff and edible to a vape cart and oil to an infused flower product or any other type of compound? And who are you going to be selling it to? Because again, being everything to everyone is a slippery slope to being nothing to nobody. And it's knowing how to best use what's at your disposal in order to make sure that you are spending wisely and getting the return on investment. And with active pharmaceutical ingredients, I look at the brand benefit ladder and how those ingredients are key enablers to my overall brand proposition. And that, what is the product attribute that I am selling? And then what is customer benefit from that attribute? What is then the product benefit that the customer is receiving? And how does that tie into the emotional benefit? And if I can understand that process, right, of purchasing and consumption, then I will most likely be using APIs to my best advantage in the most efficient and effective way.
That's very good quality advice to new entrepreneurs and to existing ones who are looking to repivot their value propositions and solve the biggest problems in the world or deliver happy products to their consumers.